Hey, friends, welcome back to the Present Solution podcast, where we're working together to be present as parents while raising our teens with purpose. I'm Mike, and today we're talking about something that drives almost every parent of a teenager absolutely crazy. It's Sunday night, projects due Monday morning. You find out at 9 p.m. that it's not done. It's not even started, maybe barely started. And your teenagers, where? They're on their phone, they're gaming, they're watching something. They're doing anything except the one thing they're supposed to be doing. And you want to say, and maybe you do say, why do you keep doing this? You knew about this, you've had weeks. What's going on? And here's what I want to tell you. What you're watching is not laziness, and it's not a character flaw, and it's not evidence that your teenager doesn't care about their future. What you're watching is two things. It's a developing brain doing something it was literally wired to do, and doing an environment that makes the problem significantly worse, and a lack of a system that creates clarity and forward movement for your teen. So today, I'm going to explain exactly what's happening, why the standard advice fails, and what you can actually do as a parent to help your teen build patterns that will serve them for the rest of their life. So let's jump into it. Okay, let me start with the neuroscience, because when you understand what's happening in your teenager's brain, the behavior stops looking like laziness and it starts looking like something much more specific and definitely more workable for you as a parent helping your teen. Now, what most people call procrastination is actually cognitive overload. Okay, maybe you've heard that word before. I guarantee you felt that experience before as an adult, as a professional, as a parent. And certainly when you were a teen too. So, cognitive overload. And those two things require different responses. Okay. When the brain is overloaded, when mental demands exceed what a person's cognitive bandwidth can handle, the prefrontal cortex, okay, or what I'm going to call the PFC, um, goes offline. Okay. Because when your cortical real estate is little to none, you just go offline. And I think you know what that's like to be an adult when you have too many things going on, too much on your brain. It's hard to think. We call it brain fog or just being stuck. But that's what cognitive overload feels like. So the PFC is the part of the brain responsible for planning, prioritizing, it's impulse control. It's about starting tasks, initiation, right? And it doesn't finish developing until the mid 20s. So what that means for your teenagers is they're already operating with a prefrontal cortex that's under construction. And then when you add cognitive overload on top of that, from school stress, social pressure, the information fire hose of social media, the constant dings and pings of notifications on their phone or from their computer or email, okay, it's homework across 6 subjects, right? That prefrontal cortex doesn't just slow down, it actually goes offline. And so the brain shifts into the limbic system, the emotional, instinct driven survival brain. Okay, stress hormones spike, and in survival mode, the brain does really two things consistently. One, it reaches for what feels familiar and comfortable, and then it avoids anything that feels threatening or overwhelming. Okay, now a big project with a deadline feels threatening. Okay, the phone feels safe. Okay, this isn't your teen choosing their phone over their homework. Their brain under load is seeking dopamine relief from an overwhelming internal state. And researchers call this functional freeze. Okay, the brain isn't being lazy, it's just in shutdown mode because of high demand. And here's what makes it worse. So many teens have learned that the adrenaline of a tight deadline temporarily gets that PFC back online. So the project gets done, but unfortunately, the brain learns avoidance plus last minute rush equals a viable strategy, which is why so many people say, oh, I work so much better under pressure because they've hacked their brain into getting a rush. But while this has decent short term results like getting the project done, it will create problems later on. And it's not the healthy response to dopamine relief and work and pressure. And the truth is, that strategy costs sleep. The stress hormones that create deadline focus are the same ones that disrupt sleep onset and quality. Okay, so they impact negatively the natural melatonin release, which for teens is already later in the day and earlier for us as adults. And this is why our teens are getting wired when we're getting tired as an adult. Right. So in this pattern, your teenager finishes at midnight. They go to school exhausted. They submit work that doesn't represent their actual capability. And then the cycle runs again next week. Not to mention all the pressure that they feel for getting bad grades and the negative conversations that begin to happen between you and your teen about what's going on. Okay. And then this cycle just continues year after year and eventually into college. So, what needs to happen? Well, your teenager doesn't need to be told to work harder. They just need to understand how their brain works. And then they got to learn how to work with it and not against it. Okay. The instinctive parenting response of more pressure, stricter consequences, taking away the phone, standing over them until it's done, they all share one flawed assumption that procrastination is a motivation problem. That if the discomfort of consequences is great enough, then the motivation will appear. But if what's actually happening is cognitive overload, the prefrontal cortex is offline and the brain is in survival mode. Adding more pressure doesn't restore executive function. It adds more cortisol to an already saturated system and it just deepens the freeze and creates more stuck. Now, you've probably experienced this. You escalate the pressure, your teen shuts down further, the yelling doesn't produce the focus you want for them because you're not treating the right thing. And then there's distraction now because there's emotional tension and discomfort in the relationship and at home. Okay. Traditional anti procrastination advice like be more disciplined, push through, wake up earlier, that just asks your teenager to out discipline an evolutionary state. And that's not really a fair fight. And it doesn't address what's actually happening in the brain. So, studies from top universities have found that change doesn't happen exclusively from willpower alone, but from environmental change. So, let's talk about the strategy and the structure that you don't have yet that you and your teen both need. And these strategies are drawn from neuroscience and from real coaching work with teenagers. And they're not about forcing your teen, okay? They're about building an environment and a set of skills that make doing the right thing easier than the alternative. So, strategy number one is reduce the cognitive load before trying to work. Okay, you cannot think your way out of cognitive overload by working harder. The load has to come down first. So, help your teen build a genuine decompression ritual between school and homework. So, 20 to 30 minutes of actual restorative activity. Okay, not scrolling, but maybe a walk, a bike ride, a snack, music, quiet time, some activity outside. 20 to 30 minutes to just turn off the school brain and transition back to home with like a soft landing so that they can shift their mindset. Now, this isn't wasted time. It's actually what makes the next 2 hours actually really productive. Okay. And you also want to help them practice task triage. Okay. Not everything is equally urgent in their life or even in their academic load. Okay. Teaching them to identify the single most important thing to do today is a life skill that most adults still haven't developed. So having a system and a tool to help your kids process what's on their plate and putting it into perspective throughout the week is going to significantly help them have clarity around the work that they can do and remove the overwhelming amount of sense that they have so much to do, because now with the right system in place, they have it laid out for a whole week. I'm going to tell you the exact system that's been working for teens. Now, strategy number two is protect cognitive energy. Okay, timing will matter more than duration. So, most families let their teens come home, decompress into their phones for a couple hours, and then expect the best quality mental work at 9 or 10 p.m. Okay, and that is not when the brain does its best work. Research on the ultradian rhythm, our natural 90-minute focus cycle, shows that mental performance is significantly higher earlier in the day. So the window right after school with genuine decompression first, that 23 minutes, is often a teen's best cognitive window. In our family, we call this office hours. And so we do an hour, maybe even an hour and a half after that 20 to 30 minute kind of decompression time. Okay. And on phones, guys, the research is pretty unambiguous. Having a smartphone visible while studying just reduces cognitive capacity, even when it's not being used. The phone's got to be in another room, not just face down. It's got to be completely out of the studying environment. Okay, they don't need it. You can use an Alexa to have some soft study music. You can use a Pomodoro timer in order to use a timer. We'll talk about those strategies at another time. But remove the phone. Okay. Strategy number three is the leveraged priority. Okay, it's just one important thing per week and even one important thing per day. Now, instead of asking, hey, what needs to get done this week? Or what do you have to do today? The answer is always, because the answer is always everything, help your teen ask, what's the one thing that I can do this week that makes the future weeks easier? Okay, that's a leverage priority. Often it's not what's loudest, it's the essay coming up in 2 weeks. Okay, it's the chapter they haven't reviewed, it's the application component sitting untouched. Okay, help them identify one leveraged priority at the start of each week and block time for it early when cognitive energy is the highest. Okay, this is about choosing what we call like their rocks. What's the most important thing to get done this week that's going to move the needle forward on my top priorities that are going to make the most difference in my life? And then when you choose the most important thing for the day, it has to relate to that one or maybe two most important things for that week. Hey, what am I going to do today that's going to help me crush this goal for this week that's going to make the future weeks, months even better. Okay. Now, strategy number 4, just break the seal. And it's kind of funny to say, but break the seal. It's the tiniest possible start. Okay? The brain's resistance to starting a hard task is highest before any progress has even been made. So the moment even the smallest start occurs, resistance drops significantly and a momentum window opens up. So dopamine from small initial wins begins to kick in around the 10-minute mark and creates genuine drive to continue. So instead of write the essay, try, hey, why don't we open up a document? Let's get one sentence down. Let's get maybe a little bit of an outline down. And instead of, hey, study for the test, why don't we try, hey, let's grab the chapter 3 notes and start looking at those, or let's get out the book and look at the study guide. Okay? The goal of the first action is not necessarily progress. It's just starting, because once the seal is broken, stopping becomes even harder than continuing. Now, strategy 5, build deliberate recovery into the work rhythm. So working for extended periods without breaks doesn't actually increase output. Okay? It actually depletes the cognitive capacity that makes quality work possible. So the ultradian rhythm research shows that 90 minutes of focused work followed by a 20 to 30 minute genuine break keeps the prefrontal cortex operating its highest capacity. So help your team understand this as a performance strategy. Hey, you've been at this for 90 minutes, time to take a real break and come back to it. Okay, you'll do better work. And guys, as parents, that's coaching, and it's the skill that they need. Okay, and so having a system and a timer in place to help remind them of this is going to get them into momentum in the right direction. Now, your job in all of this is not to manage the homework. Okay, it's to track. It's not even to track every deadline or remind them daily or stand over them until it's all done. Okay, that keeps the responsibility where it doesn't belong, which is with you. Okay, and it prevents your team from developing the executive function skills that they need to be successful. Your job is to be the coach, okay, the one who helps them understand what's happening in their own brain, who builds the environment that makes good habits easier, who asks, hey, what's your plan for this week? Instead of, did you do it? Okay, so for those Sunday night moments when you find out it's not done, instead of, why do you always do this? Try, okay, what can actually get done tonight? What's the most important piece? And what are we going to do differently starting tomorrow? Okay, that shift from judgment to problem solving keeps you in the coaching role. It keeps responsibility with your team, and it models the exact executive function you're trying to help them develop. Okay, your team's procrastination is not a character defect, and it's not a parenting failure. Okay, it's just a developing brain doing what developing brains do in an environment specifically engineered to hijack their attention. At this day and age, this is unprecedented how much technology is hijacking our teens' attention. And so we're working with them and not for them or against them. Okay, now the path forward, guys, remember, is not more pressure. It's more understanding. It's a better environmental design. And it's a set of practical skills and tools. Okay, taught, modeled, practice. Okay, that's going to serve your team for the rest of their life. And if you are ready to go deeper, head over to presentsolutionforparents.com and register for my free masterclass and check out some of the resources. One of the things you're going to find there is the Win My Week planner and strategy for teen success. And it is one of the best tools to help teens manage exactly what we've been talking about, elevating their executive functioning and present skills while keeping them from the poor habits of things like procrastination. Look, parents just like you are changing the entire culture of their family and bringing peace back in their home and growing closer to their teens while helping them grow more mature and responsible, all from the inside out. So go check that out over at presentsolutionforparents.com and make sure you follow me at Mike the Parent Coach on all the platforms, and we will see you in the next show.